mais de 20 anos espetaculares, o octógono é o maior campo de provas para o MMA. Um lugar onde lutas monumentais e finalizações inesquecíveis transformam lutadores em lendas. Agora, para celebrar o maior evento da história do esporte, prepare-se para a contagem regressiva dos maiores lutadores do UFC de todos os tempos. Este é o UFC 200 melhores lutadores de todos os tempos. Praticamente desde o primeiro dia em que a porta do octógono foi aberta, existe um debate intenso sobre quais lutadores são dignos de serem considerados os melhores peso por peso. E a cada ano contundente que se passa, essa tarefa se torna cada vez mais difícil. Portanto, em honra ao histórico UFC 200, um comitê de jornalistas, comentaristas e outros especialistas deram seus votos, compilados aqui em uma lista apresentada para sua consideração dos 200 melhores lutadores do UFC de todos os tempos. E agora que os primeiros 170 lutadores foram revelados, apresentamos o número 30, um bicampeão mundial de jiu-jitsu e ex-campeão do UFC, conhecido por algumas das vitórias mais empolgantes da história dos pesos pesados.
Fabricio Verdum, the guy's big as a house, stronger than ox.
Eu via no começo da carreira ele fazendo muito mais jiu-jitsu do que tentando lutar em pé.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu at its finest.
Been in the game for so long. He fight Japan, then he went to UFC, then he went to Strike Force.
And Verdum with the guillotine, and he taps out just like that.
I saw his star in the beginning in Japan.
He's got it. Beautiful armbar.
He beat the best. He beat Fedor.
He's almost got it locked. Here comes the triangle choke.
Fabricio submitted Fedor. It's like, I thought the goddamn moon was gonna fall out of the sky. Nobody expected that.
He's done it. He's done it. Fedor losing for the first time. Unbelievable.
When he came back to UFC, he came back a different fighter.
He went from jiu-jitsu and he took the time to learn how to kickbox and Muay Thai and wrestle.
Fabricio, brilliant knee.
He was preparing to fight Cain Velasquez for the UFC Heavyweight Championship, and he gets the word that Cain Velasquez has to pull out of the fight, and now you're going to fight Mark Hunt for the interim title. He went out and he threw the knee, landed right on the chin, and that was the end of the fight.
Nice knee. He got it. Verdum trying to finish. And it's all over.
When Fabricio Verdum fought Cain Velasquez, Verdum was really well prepared for that fight.
Another strong right hand by Fabricio. Uppercut.
He beat Cain Velasquez stand up, he beat Cain Velasquez on the floor, and then he put his name on the top in the war.
Looking to lock it in. Can he get it? It is all over.
Número 29, um ícone do MMA que defendeu seu cinturão peso-pena do WEC 5 vezes, que tem o maior número de vitórias que qualquer outro peso-galo do UFC na história.
The California Kid, your favorite.
I mean, the guy's literally a legend, like god of the sport, you know, and still doing it.
Ryan Faber's been around a long time, and he's fun to watch, man. And you know, he goes out there and he just keeps getting better.
Uriah Faber by submission.
Ambitious dude, good style, always exciting, a little surfer look, butt chin, you know, he's got it.
He's innovative.
You gotta be kidding me. He just threw a knee with 1 foot up.
Probably his best attribute, I would say, is his submission grappling. And he had a series of guillotines that if you weren't careful, he could finish anybody in the world.
That's it. The guillotine is how Faber ends it. He is the new.
Uriah's reign as WEC champion was the start of really a whole generation of lightweight fighters.
He was the face of the WEC. He was the featherweight champion, a belt that he defended 5 times.
The speed and the pace just too much for Dominic Cruz. The WEC.
Were the little weight classes that just had no shine, and they needed somebody to bring some attention to the lighter weight classes. At that time, Uriah Faber was the guy.
Uriah Faber is why the UFC has picked up the 135-pound division and made the 125-pound division as well.
And really, over the last decade or so, Faber has really become the most popular lighter weight fighter in mixed martial arts history.
Uriah Faber's most memorable fight to me was when he fought Michael McDonald. This was going to be a really difficult test for him to take on this young kid who was on fire. He had one opening.
Looking to finish the fight.
Finished him, reminded everybody who Uriah Faber was as a fighter.
Faber was the first person where you looked at a small guy and you're like, that guy's awesome and cool and can beat me up and like I want to be like him.
Número 28. Atleta olímpico que se tornou o primeiro campeão peso pesado do UFC ao introduzir a técnica de ground and pound.
I love Mark Coleman. I love the hammer.
He was a wrestler that I knew on the same Olympic team as me in '92, and he was on the freestyle team, and then I started watching him fight.
There was talk about, holy moly, an Olympic athlete is now in the UFC. This changes everything.
He's going to go for a choke right here. Going for the submission.
He's a beast, hardcore, get in your face, try and beat you up with brute power.
He made his mark in UFC. We call him the father of the ground and pound.
In 2000, the Pride Grand Prix, nobody thought that he was going to win. He really took it to the next level, and you could see that when he won that tournament. That was very emotional, I think, for everybody. Everybody got tears in their eyes. I
feel like the luckiest man in the world right now.
I idolized that guy for ground and pound and wanted to emulate his style.
Lands a right hand, a couple more.
He beat the out of me for 10 or 12 minutes, I don't know.
And that is all.
He was an animal. He was a total animal.
The winner, Mark Coleman.
Número 27. Artista de nocautes muito duro e talentoso que capturou o cinturão peso meio médio do UFC mais de 12 anos após sua estreia no octógono.
Robbie Lawler is the best welterweight in the world.
Oh, good left hand.
I started training with Robbie when he was in high school, and I can remember how tough he was back then.
Looking to finish it. It is all over.
And one thing I do know about Robbie, he's a fighter.
Robbie Lawler é um lutador bastante agressivo, que sempre impõe o jogo dele e consegue vários nocautes com isso.
His mental toughness, his punching power, his ability to just, go through anything and keep fighting.
There was no boring fights with Robbie Lawler. The 5th round against Carlos Condit. That's when you saw the fighter in Robbie Lawler come out, when he knew that the fight was close. And Robbie Lawler came out in that 5th round like a man on a mission.
Oh my God!
I've had a beautiful opportunity to see the metamorphosis, to see the evolution of Robbie Lawler. From this young, raw, aggressive kid to what he is now, this mature, disciplined, incredibly strong champion. The rematch with Johnny Hendricks. First fight went down to the wire with Johnny pulling it off in the 5th round. In the second fight, Robbie Lawler was having none of that. He came to seek and destroy. He was staring him down after the bell had rung. He wanted to keep fighting.
I'm waiting for Bruce to announce, and still or the new. He looks at me, he sees I've got the belt, and I strap the belt on his waist. That moment is my greatest memory in the octagon.
That fight against Rory McDonald was just absolutely fantastic.
Epic confrontation. Both fighters were hurt. Robbie was stunned and almost out on his feet at one point in time.
And lo and behold, Robbie throws those flurry of punches and knocks him down, and the fight's over.
Robbie Lawler is perseverance, man.
He's got that chip inside his brain that you are not going to beat me.
Robbie Lawler is one of the best examples of what is possible with experience and hard work and dedication, and most importantly, a champion's mindset.
Número 26. Bicampeão do UFC que possui o recorde de maior número de lutas, vitórias e finalizações entre os pesos pesados dentro do octógono.
Frank Mir, he won a title twice. Phenomenal jiu-jitsu. Great knockout power, a real smart fighter. He's been in the game for so long and real crafty. And you can see when he fights, he's just a tough guy too.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Oh! Goes Duffy out cold! Frank Mir does it again!
People take Frank Mir for granted. Frank's a nice guy,
He's a good guy, but when you look at how vicious he can be, one, the Tim Sylvia fight when he broke his arm.
Frank's a phenomenal stand-up fighter, but he's also great in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, look at this! Unbelievable! Finish it!
He's a very explosive fighter. He's got a great jiu-jitsu, one of the best submissions there in the game.
Well, he had that Kimura on and he snapped it, man, without any second thought.
I was glad that I finally got an opportunity to lock horns with him and to see how it would pair out and to come out with all of my limbs intact.
Frank Mir, best performance for me, I'm gonna stay with that one. He submitted Brock Lesnar very, very fast. Everybody was expecting, Brock Lesnar to do great show, the huge guy who would beat Frank Mir. The fight started, he got that leg and submit him. That was impressive.
He is that fierce competitor. He is the guy that wants to rip something off. When he caught Tank Abbott in the omoplata and got to the ankle lock, like if Tank didn't tap, he was going to rip the ankle right off. Frank Mir is absolutely the nicest, sweetest guy outside the cage, but inside the cage, he is one of the most violent, vicious men you will ever meet.
Número 25. Nativo holandês com uma enorme personalidade que se tornou tricampeão do Pancrase e campeão peso pesado do UFC antes de encerrar sua carreira em uma sequência de 22 vitórias consecutivas.
Making his octagon debut, Boss
Boss Rutan was a fighter like the old cartoon Tasmanian Devil, Come from every direction, 100 miles an hour.
He just doesn't give a He's gonna try to beat your ass up. That's what I remember with Boss.
Boss Rutan overall just was different. I mean, he was so explosive. Everybody knows the jump after the fight.
Slapped the guys in the face. Hey man, imagine one guy slapped one guy in the face and the guy's knocked down. He's very strong, man.
Strong kick and his great submission, great strike. Complete fighter.
For Holland, he was the first one that really brought the mixed martial art in the picture for us.
Larger-than-life personality, and, he's been pretty verbal about some of his escapades.
Remember when the Boss fought Kevin Hanneman?
Probably the best we've seen in the UFC at striking from the back. Oh my, he delivered with the right foot. The new UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Boss
Número 24. Brasileiro mestre de karatê que com ataques imprevisíveis venceu o título do peso meio pesado e alguns dos nocautes mais espetaculares da história do UFC.
There are fighters and there are martial artists, and Lyoto Machida is truly a martial artist. The style that he brought into the sport of mixed martial arts was one that really gave a lot of people trouble.
Lyoto Machida brought a karate background into the fight and said, hey, look, this can work.
His fighting style is hard to figure out. He kept his distance, has unbelievable timing.
The footwork, the stance, the motion, the things that he does is completely different than anybody else.
The way he put his karate, his distance there in the game was beautiful to watch.
People couldn't hit him, couldn't figure him out. You couldn't get anybody to train with you that could emulate him. It was a really, really difficult, tricky fight to take on, and people were frustrated. Nobody wanted to get the call and say, hey, you're fighting Lyoto Machida next.
The best knockout I've seen him do, the Karate Kid crane kick he hit on Randy Couture.
Honestly, I didn't see it coming at all.
Oh my God, wow!
The little shuffle of his feet that distracted you enough from watching one foot, which you thought was coming, to landing the kick with the other foot.
That is the Karate Kid.
I got several new teeth because of that, thank you.
Guy hit a crane kick from Karate Kid in an actual fight against a legend. That's something you don't see every day and probably only once in a lifetime.
He was like the champ when I was young and first getting into the MMA game, and everything I did as a young fighter was to beat him one day.
Pushing forward again is Machida.
In my book, will always be considered one of the GOATs in this sport.
Número 23. Um dos lutadores mais carismáticos e fortes que já pisou dentro do octógono e que venceu o cinturão peso meio pesado de forma devastadora.
Rampage Jackson, he's been one of my all-time favorites. His work in Pride, just him coming out with the slams.
Rampage kills me in that when you think he can't pick you up and slam you down, he finds a way.
I told you he'd pick him up and slam him down. He's out! He's out!
I just remember the slam of Ricardo Arona. Ricardo had a triangle on him and Rampage picked him up and slammed him and he was out for the count. Rampage was known for slamming people after that.
Rampage took all that ferocity, brute wrestling strength, and then started adding a striking component to his game. And when that happened, man, he was somebody to be feared.
He's known for the big slams, the big knockouts, because that's what came naturally to him, and that's what people wanted to see. And he always tried to give fans what they wanted to see.
Rampage Jackson, quite a character with his chains and his pre-fight barking.
He can split his personality from fighting to goofing off and entertaining.
Rampage and Rashad's rivalry was nuts to watch.
I'm here right now, yo. Please.
See two grown men go back and forth and be so petty like that. You know, it was kind of entertaining. Rampage was definitely my most intense stare down. Man, he started saying to me, like, you know, you're gonna die, or you know I'm gonna knock you out, right?
I'm gonna end his hype tomorrow, that's what I told him.
Would do something silly outside of the cage and then come in and punch you right in the mouth, and most of the time he would knock you out.
Good left hook to the bottom.
When he knocked out Chuck Liddell, he went bow, bow, bow. Knocked him out, hit him, howled.
Rampage, he's fun to watch. He's tough. He comes out there and he's a brawler. You know, people like to watch brawlers.
Número 22. Membro do Hall da Fama do UFC que defendeu o título peso meio pesado 5 vezes em sua memorável carreira.
People forget what a dominant force Tito was at his time. There was none like him, man. He was controversial. He definitely ran his mouth and talked a pretty heavy game and then went out there and backed it up.
He was a badass back in his heyday. He really did bring that bad boy image. He showed everybody you can be a dick and still win and win people over.
If you care for another beating, step up. I am Rick James and you are my bitch.
Tito Ortiz was really one of the guys who bridged the gap between the dark ages of the UFC to where we are now. He was one of the big draws. He was one of the big ticket sellers.
Love him or hate him, you want to see him win, you want to see him lose, you just want to see the man perform.
He's a big guy. He wore suits that accentuated that. He wore the blonde hair. In his heyday, he carried the belts around with him. He was larger than life.
He was an entertainer. He's actually one of the first personalities that kind of brought somewhat of the drama inside the UFC cage.
I hope to God you come ready, because if you don't, I'm gonna beat you into the living death.
After a fight, he had this t-shirt that he put on with a slogan for that particular fighter that he just beat. I just made you my B. I just did, you know, every time, and that became big.
I said the hell with it. He didn't feel that strong. I thought I'd take him to the ground. I mean, I do jiu-jitsu all the time, so I know what's on the ground.
Tito had a great ground and pound. He could take you down, and he was great at doing damage from inside the guard.
He was a master of the ground and pound. Showed a lot of us how to use elbows in the cage. Real true innovator.
Not the forefather of ground and pound, but the first guy to make it exciting, to cut guys, to beat guys up, to stop guys from the top.
He's a pioneer of the sport because he's paved the way for us.
Número 21. Lendário striker brasileiro que é dos 3 lutadores a vencer o cinturão do Pride e do UFC.
I know Shogun since 16 years old. I started training him as a Muay Thai fighter. I was preparing him for the future. Right after, I put him to fight MMA.
The youngest competitor is really taking it to the Pride veteran.
Everybody knew he was coming from Shooter Box, a great team, but nobody real pay attention on him. And then he's beating everybody.
Against Ricardo Arona, flies in, hits with the foot, and then just starts punching behind him and clips him right in the chin, takes him out.
Once he came to the UFC, they ended up matching us up together.
Shogun takes Henderson down.
And ended up being, a fight people talk about.
One of the best of all time, between two of the best of all time.
He was just tenacious the way he went about fighting. The way he crossed distance, the way he threw his clinch.
His ability to improvise on the fly and just start moving and flowing and just pull something out of thin air and turn it into success.
He is a very, very tough opponent for anybody.
One of my favorite fighters to watch, really mastered the art of coming in, strike, clinch, dump. He did that same thing to so many guys with such success. I fought Shogun twice. I got knocked out in like 1 minute.
That ability to shut the door on a guy so quickly, it's what made Shogun such a fan favorite.
Número 20. Bicampeão peso pesado cujo ritmo e resistência são ultrapassados somente por suas combinações poderosas.
When Cain Velasquez made his UFC debut, there was more hype behind him than any fighter I can ever recall that only had 2 previous mixed martial arts fights. But Cain Velasquez lived up to that hype.
Velasquez, victorious in his UFC debut.
What Cain has done in a real limited period of time is unbelievable. He's been the UFC champ twice.
Cain Velasquez defends his heavyweight championship.
Cain Velasquez brought diversity to the UFC. First generation Mexican-American.
He have a lot of fans in Latin America, Mexico. Guys love him.
Para mí es un sueño pelear aquí. Uno de ustedes y ganar para ustedes.
Cain's pace is what sets him above the rest. His ability to ignore the pain, to ignore how tired he is.
He's a big guy that kind of wrestles like a small guy. He's one of those big guys that has a gas tank for days.
He never gets tired. He even allowed me to even breathe, to think, anything.
Junior's exhausted.
His performances against JDS are the ones that cemented his legacy. I've never seen a display of heart and determination to that extent.
Most memorable fight was Brock Lesnar. I was there, I corner Cain every time, and just the aggression that Cain came out with.
Everyone thought Brock was unbeatable.
Felt like the roof of the Anaheim Center was gonna fly off.
Cain is a man of few words, but when he fights, you see his emotion and his personality come out. That's the beautiful thing about fighting. You find out who these people really are in that cage. Their emotion, their true heart, and their performance will speak for themselves.
Número 19. Recordista do Pride Fighting Championships com o maior número de vitórias, nocautes, defesas de título e a mais longa sequência de vitórias, cujo estilo implacável de Muay Thai o tornaram um dos mais temidos lutadores da história do MMA.
Wanderlei Silva is an absolute maniac. Period.
He's just a scary-looking dude anyway. Even if he wasn't, a world-class fighter, he's just an intimidating-looking guy. And he's got the rolling of the wrists when the referee's announcing him.
He get in there and do the old wrist roll. Everybody in that place just get excited.
Most intense stare down I've ever had, I'd have to say. Definitely a little fear in me for that fight.
Tem a velocidade ponto forte dele, onde que também ele pôde mudar o cenário do MMA no Brasil.
He came out to try to tear your head off.
Nice chop and kick. Follows it with the left again with the knees. Wanderlei smiling at him, and that is it. That's the end of it right there.
He went on a run, I think almost winning 20 fights in a row.
He didn't like humanity, and he brought it to the ring, and he took it out on the dumb bastard who was in the cage with him.
The first time I had seen him, I was already scheduled to fight him. Showed up and I'm like, I'm fighting that guy?
He looked kind of scary. He fought that way too.
The most memorable fight for Vanderlei Silva is the one that I had with him. We absolutely got after it. And I remember early in the fight, he dropped me, then I dropped him, he dropped me again. I remember going through my mind, well, I don't know who's going down in this fight, but one of us is. He knew it wasn't gonna go the distance.
He was very entertaining to watch. Wasn't so entertaining to fight against. But, you know, to watch him fight other people was great.
Número 18. Nativo de Ohio que parou seus primeiros 6 adversários no octógono no caminho para vencer o título peso médio e legado como dos maiores finalizadores da história do UFC.
Rich is Franklin, teacher turned fighter.
He was a good wrestler, he was good on the ground, and he was sharp on the feet. One of the first guys to have that full, well-rounded game.
A real solid left-handed fighter that put together a lot of good wins.
He's not left-handed. He just decided that he was going to fight southpaw. He writes with his right hand, he throws with his right hand. He cleaned out the 85-pound division. They were bringing guys in from overseas, other organizations. That's kind of how Anderson Silva ended up in the UFC.
Rich Franklin, excelente lutador e que me deu a oportunidade de me tornar campeão. E cara que fez lutas históricas, né? E assim.
Rich Franklin is very dangerous here as well. Absolutely. Good left hand by Rich Franklin.
I think back to one of the better fights Rich had. It's the knockout against Nate Corey.
Nate got drilled early in that fight, nose was bleeding everywhere. Coming off a bad shot right there, Rich Franklin, bam.
He hit him with that left hand, and Nate went like stiff as a board and just fell back.
Very impressive performance by Rich Franklin.
Franklin's most memorable fight for me was when he fought Chuck Liddell. Early in the fight, he gets his arm broken by a kick, comes back, still knocks Chuck Liddell out. And I mean, it just showed that he had a certain level of toughness.
And another guy who's just all heart. You know, no quitting him and just keep coming.
Franklin was just one of the great champions of our era.
Número 17. Uma sensação do judô olímpico que tomou o MMA para tornar-se ícone mundial e a primeira campeã do UFC.
Who would ever have thought that UFC would allow and embrace women until Ronda Rousey came in?
Ronda Rousey is beautiful, but at the same time can rip your arm off and beat you with it.
She's like Hoist Gracie, the girl version, you know? She went in there and just took out everybody.
There's very few stars that come around like that with that pure confidence and ability to back it up. She could talk the talk and she could walk the walk.
UFC 157 will forever be one of the most important nights in women's mixed martial arts. That's when Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche first put women's mixed martial arts on the map.
Everybody knows that she has the armbar, and you can prepare as much as you want, but this is an Olympic athlete that's been doing it since she was a toddler.
It's all over! First round armbar finish for the champion!
You kind of feel the buzz and the changing of the tides, you know, where the fight game was more than just men going to battle.
And that was the beginning of it all.
She took women's fighting and made it huge.
She was just running through everybody, and that's never happened with any fighter in this sport. That definitely, you can't take any of that credit away from Ronda Rousey.
Just like that!
She went down to Brazil, she won over the crowd, and she knocks out Betchka Hayden.
Betchka is in big trouble!
30 seconds into the fight, you know, Betch is out cold.
One of the most dominant women of all time, or fighter of all time.
Now she's not only a UFC superstar, she's a movie star, and she really created the visions for the women.
After I saw Ronda make it to the UFC, I realized dreams can come true, and I can make fighting 100% my career.
She's just something that nobody's gonna ever forget.
Número 16. O orgulho de Nova Jersey. e ex-campeão peso leve, que acumulou mais de 5 horas dentro do octógono durante sua poderosa carreira.
In my opinion, Frankie Edgar's seat in the UFC's Hall of Fame is all set up. The champion at 155 pounds, despite being smaller than everyone else.
Frankie Edgar é um grande atleta, foi campeão peso leve para mim, diferenciado, onde que era o menor da categoria.
Tough, fast, technical, not an ounce of quit in him fighter.
Just a guy who is unflinching, willing to step right in there and take whatever you're going to throw at him, because he thinks that he's going to be able to knock you out or take you out.
Frankie Edgar finishes the legend BJ Penn.
I think the fights with Gray Maynard are just the ones that kind of speak to his character.
The trilogy will go down as one of the best trilogies in UFC history.
That fight with Gray Maynard, I thought there was no way he was going to make it out of that round.
Big uppercut by Gray Maynard.
You know, he made it out of that round, but came back and won the fight.
When you get dropped by a guy like Maynard, for Edgar to be able to bounce back from those kinds of things just shows what kind of heart that he has.
He's probably the smartest guy I've ever fought. He seemed like he could make adjustments on the fly, and that's what really impressed me more than anything about him is just his fight intelligence.
I put him up there as one of the top pound for pounds, being the champion at 155, just what he's been doing down at 145. I can't wait to see this guy fight once again.
I'm just a fan of his style. He just goes out there and uses his wrestling, his boxing, and his movement, his angles. You know, he's definitely a guy to look out for, a Hall of Famer for sure.
Número 15. Renomado peso pesado, conhecido por ser mestre de jiu-jitsu e de apenas 3 homens a ter conquistado títulos no Pride e no UFC.
Big Nog or Minotauro, a big legend of this sport, you know, one of my idols.
He was one of the first guys to be a more complete fighter, the best guy on the ground as far as jiu-jitsu.
His submissions, he was one of the first heavyweight submission artists that would catch guys in it consistently and win fights with it.
Very dangerous with his submissions, so he showed that over and over again.
He fought everyone. He fought all these guys, like huge guys.
He was just so durable, and he would just fight anybody. And he always tried to finish fights.
Big Nog was just scary for a word go. Skull had to be about 4 inches thick, you know. You could beat him all day long, it wouldn't affect him.
He was a guy, you know, take a beating, he'd still come back and win.
It's like a frickin' Looney Tunes character getting anvils dropped on his head, safes and crap like that, and just still keep getting up.
Guillotine and a counter choke.
The one that actually stands out the most is when he fought Bob Sapp.
It was absolutely incredible. It was shocking to me. In the first minute of the fight, he got power bombed in his head and he passed out.
I mean, you could tell the lights were out. He endured, and then comes out on top and gets the armbar in the end.
There's no quit in him. If there's 10 seconds of the last round left, he's still got a shot to beat you.
É cara que se superou em todas as suas lutas e mostrou porque foi e é grande campeão.
Número 14. Striker com rapidez e agilidade extraordinária, cuja brilhante técnica o levou a reinar no WEC e UFC como campeão peso galo.
He is one of the great athletes that came from the WEC days. His only loss his whole entire career is to Uriah Faber.
I don't love the guy, but you can't take it away from him. The guy's got some fighting spirit, multiple-time world champion, a guy that I've faced on a few occasions.
Probably the best footwork in the game. It's just hard to guess where he's going to be next. He's here, he's there, then he's behind you.
He's one of the guys that I fought in the game that was mentally strong and understood mixed martial arts.
This is bad. Trying to finish it here.
And who's technically sound, who can mix it up, and who's driven.
Dominic Cruz was riding high in 2011. He had just beaten Demetrius Johnson to defend and retain his UFC bantamweight title. He had not lost in 4 years. And then tragedy struck.
Few ACL surgeries, 3 years, and he finally comes back and he fights a very tough Mizugaki.
His footwork looks just as fresh, his movement's just as fresh. He can tell he wants it.
In spectacular fashion.
Of course, only 2 months later, Cruz tore his ACL yet again.
For him to overcome that is the definition of fighting. It's the definition of what we're doing here.
I'm happy to see him back and be able to get his championship back that he actually never lost. It was stripped from him.
Just seeing his grit and his dedication to the sport through his ups and downs, and just him continually staying on top, it's really impressed me. He's a guy that's just one of the best of us little guys.
Número 13. Pioneiro e campeão do Pancrase, WEC, UFC e Strike Force, que ainda é considerado por muitos o primeiro verdadeiro lutador de MMA.
Watching Frank at his best sometimes is just like art. When he gets taken down by Kevin Jackson and immediately wraps himself up right into that armbar, it was just so incredible. And the whole world was just left going, yeah, what happened?
His little tiny Speedo shorts, I think that was funny.
Frank Shamrock really could do it all, and he showed that it wasn't just one style versus another style. It was about being great in all aspects of the fight game.
Frank Shamrock retains his belt for the 4th time.
He beat every guy that the world had to offer at that time.
What was your true game plan when you walked in here?
My plan was to beat the crap out of him.
The best win in Frank Shamrock's career is when he fought Tito Ortiz. And when he fought Tito, it was a hard-fought match.
Ortiz impressive here in the first round.
He's plowing into Frank, taking him down, holding him, and just trying to ground and pound him and just stifling him as best as he can. And every opportunity Frank gets, he's landing shots, he's cracking him, he's punishing him for it. And sure enough, man, comes down to conditioning, and Tito takes a sloppy shot, gets in on his ankle. Frank just posts out and just goes to town with hammer fists until Tito is done.
Frank Shamrock retains the middleweight title.
We'll go in there with this fierce mentality and this methodical but very vicious style of fighting. And I think that's what made Frank Shamrock extremely special.
Número 12. Lutador olímpico que permanece o único lutador a segurar 2 títulos em 2 categorias de pesos diferentes em uma grande organização de MMA.
Dan Henderson. This guy's an idol of mine, a person that I looked up to not only in fighting but also in wrestling. He was on the 96 and 92 Olympic wrestling team.
There may be no more respected figure in all of mixed martial arts.
Dan Henderson was part of that Raw team, those wrestlers that were being cultivated to head out on this MMA scene with their acquired skills and training over the years.
Nice uppercut there by Henderson as now he takes the fight to Bustamante, and there you see him.
He's the only fighter to ever hold 2 world titles in Pride. When you look at his highlight reel, it is spectacular knockout after spectacular knockout.
Henderson pouring it on! Uppercut! Both goes to the canvas! Dan Henderson comes up large in New Orleans!
He has that kind of an overhand hook that just seems to find its mark.
Beautiful escape by Henderson! Fedor stopping Fedor Emelianenko!
Dan Henderson, he can throw a hell of a right, can't he?
Huge right hand for Hendo!
I was at the fight whenever he fought Michael Bisping, and that was the one fight that everybody in the arena stood up.
And he did one of the best knockouts I ever seen in UFC.
Everybody that fights today thinks they're gonna age like fine wine, like Dan Henderson.
Don't ever sleep on Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson is an animal.
Guys, no, it's not gonna happen. You're gonna be more like me, where you're done at 35, not 45 like Dan.
Número 11. O brasileiro cujo recorde do UFC de 13 vitórias no primeiro round incrivelmente começou aos 19 anos de idade.
Vitor, the name fits in the phenom.
He is the heir apparent to the Brazilian greatness.
O Vitor Belfort é um fenômeno desde criança nas artes marciais.
Came in at 19, started whooping ass at that age, and he's been whooping ass all the way till now he's 39.
Vitor Belfort, very fast hands, good power.
His first round flurry, boom, like a chainsaw. He'd come right at you, and he'd come at you, and he'd go through you if you weren't smart enough to get out of the way.
That was vintage Vitor Belfort right there.
A lot of people just remember him for his fast punches, but very underrated jiu-jitsu game, very underrated kickboxing. You know, this guy has some kicks from hell.
Vitor Belfort has knocked out Michael Bisping.
Vitor is like a spark plug out there. He's unpredictable. He saw blood and he came at me like a madman.
The most epic Vitor Belfort knockout for me was the one against Luke Rockhold.
Luke Rockhold making his UFC debut against the seasoned grizzled veteran.
He threw that spinning back kick and landed it.
The one that really blew me away was him versus Tank Abbott. I used to think Tank Abbott was like one of the toughest guys around, and then this 19-year-old comes in the UFC and just demolished him.
Nobody expected that to happen. Belfort cut them like hot knife through butter.
Tank can handle punishment, but that'll be enough.
Vitor is a legend and he's one of the greatest fighters that's ever lived.
No próximo UFC 200 melhores lutadores de todos os tempos. Após listar alguns dos mais lendários e inesquecíveis personagens da história do UFC, nós finalmente revelamos os Top 10, incluindo Mighty Mouse, The Spider, The Iceman e The Prodigy, na contagem regressiva ao número 1. Este é o UFC 200 melhores lutadores de todos os tempos.